Well, Stuart Pearce, here we are in the heart of the West End of London, and please explain, why are you here?
Double-fold thing really. Firstly, and probably more importantly, the connection with prostate cancer, pushing the charity day today for them. It's obviously a big problem with men, probably around my age and older, if you like, so that's a real big driver for today. On top of that, being unveiled as an ambassador for Riley's Sports Bar over the World Cup period and just beyond that, and my tie-in with them, which will be interesting. I'll be out in Brazil for a couple of weeks, covering a couple of games for Talk Sport for them, and obviously feeding back my thoughts and comments in regard to the World Cup.
Fantastic. Now, you've had an amazingly long and successful career. Arguably, two of the most well-known excerpts of your career. One was at the World Cup, and one was 6 years later. I take it, what are we now, 24 years on? You've got over that penalty miss. But looking back at that '96 celebration when you scored that penalty, I remember watching it, Stuart, and I was thinking, please, dear God, score. Not for England, but just for Stuart Pearce.
I think that was the beauty of it. I think a lot of people, and make no mistake, that was a hell of a long time ago now, 17 years ago I think, and I still sign that picture after the penalty. It is the most signed picture that I ever signed. It's probably the one picture, and when I think about it in sport, and especially in football sport, there are very few pictures you can actually put in front of somebody and say, tell me when that was taken, tell me against the opposition, tell me the significance, tell me the stadium that was in. A lot of people, football fans, could probably tell you exactly where that picture was taken. For me, fantastic tournament to be involved in. Nice to score a penalty, actually.
Yeah, well, you completely lost it. Was that sort of 6 years gushing out at the end there?
Not something that was pre-planned, but I think looking back, I probably had a similar mentality to probably a lot of supporters that saw me going up to take a penalty, that utter relief of scoring a penalty, and also as well, by scoring it helped England get into the next round of the competition, which was really important. I think probably a lot of people there sort of held their breath in the hope that I was going to score because of the history I had 6 years earlier.
Now, a lot of interest, would you believe, from Wealdstone fans who would like to know, what are your thoughts on Wealdstone's season? It's been pretty good.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, to be fair. I mean, it's nice that the club have turned players out into the league, like myself, Vinnie Jones, Jermaine Beckford as well, come from sort of those humble beginnings and broke into the Football League this year, got promoted, fantastic achievement for the football club. It's a great club with a great, I've done various things over the years to support the club, sponsoring shirts, stuff like that. And the club were good to me. They gave me my start when I was 16-year-old and leaving school and didn't have anywhere to go and play football. So, I was there for a number of years, somewhere in the region of over 5 years at Wealdstone as a player, in the youth team, in the reserves, in the first team, and ended up playing 250 odd games for around that mark for the first team. So a big part of my career, and they give me the opportunity in the grounding to go on and play in the pro game.
Yeah. Now, as a player, you're probably best known for your days at Forest. You played under a manager. Anybody under 30 won't fully appreciate this. Anybody over 30 will, who many feel was the greatest.
I think maybe Ferguson and Ferguson's achievements have probably pushed him past Brian Clough. Prior to maybe the last 5 years, I would have always championed Brian as being the best manager Britain has ever turned out because of my connection with him. I've never met anybody that has won a European Cup / Champions League back to back with an unfashionable club as Forest were in those days. And on top of that, basically, I've never met anyone with the character and the personality of Brian Clough, and I don't think I've been fortunate enough to meet prime ministers and royalty, but no one has had the personality of this individual.
Sure. Well, of course, when this summer's over, the World Cup's over, what are you going to do? You're going to take over Nottingham Forest as the next manager. You must be so excited, but it's a big responsibility because they're a big club, aren't they? And no team's got a given right to be in the Premiership, but that's the sort of area that you need to be looking at, isn't it?
Make no mistake, the proviso for myself and the owner will be get the club. I have a 2-year contract to try and get the club into the Premier League over those two-year period. The one thing I'll be stressing is the club don't have any given right. I don't have any given right with my history with the football club to be successful. I have to work at it on a daily basis. The club itself will have to do exactly the same and follow my lead. If you're good enough over 46 games, you get in. If you're not and you think you're too good to be not in the Championship or be in the Championship, you'll stay in the Championship for another year or you'll drop down to League One, that is for sure. But you know, there's some great examples near us in our local rivals in Leicester that have built the club with Nigel Pearson over 3 or 4 years, and they've ended up achieving and taking a very stable club into the Premier League.
Now, very quickly, you're going to be in Brazil. I think what's different this time is that actually the media, the great British media, actually aren't bigging up England, and that for once might be an advantage, because let's be honest, the group in itself looks pretty tough and nobody really thinks England are going to get, well, too far in the World Cup. Hard to see it, but maybe that's going to work to their advantage.
Well, I think from the playing point of view and the manager's point of view, it's good that there's no massive expectation. It's probably the last European Championships, and this World Cup is the lowest expectation that I've ever known an England team to go to a tournament with. And no matter what the expectation is, it's no relevance to how successful or unsuccessful you'll be as a team. So I think it will help the playing side of it. It will manage expectation in the country and that little bit, and hopefully we can sit back and enjoy, an England team that are fairly successful.
They'll have to be at their best though, won't they? I mean, to get past, I don't know, Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Holland, Italy, you name them, there's going to be a lot of teams who are capable of Spain, capable of winning that World Cup.
Well, I think it's probably the most open World Cup there's ever been, I would say. When we turn around and we talk about, if you'd have wound the clock back maybe 10 years and said there's going to be a World Cup in Brazil, you would have said Brazil will definitely be the favourites and 100% they'll win it. If you ask 20 people on the street today who might win it, they'll tell you anybody from Argentina to Brazil to Spain to Germany to Holland and even Belgium as an outsider, and probably won't mention England, So I think it's wide open. I think anyone could win it. I think it will be difficult for a side outside South America to win it personally, but time will tell.
Now, before we let you go, very quickly, you're well known for your love of music. If you were on Mastermind, your chosen subject may not be Nottingham Forest, it may be the Stranglers. Just tell us a couple of quick stories. They named the Stranglers, named a record label after you, correct?
They did, yeah. Psycho Records was named after me. In fact, when you talk about it, if I was on Mastermind, my specialist subject, I remember there was a celebrity programme on some time back. I think whoever it was on at the time could have scored 12 out of in their specialist round. I scored 13, so it really is a specialist. The whole punk era, it's a specialist subject for me. On the streets of London and going to gigs when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, and carried on doing so. Obviously the Stranglers are probably the band that I've got the closest connection with.
Who are the other bands you were into in those days?
Stiff Little Fingers, the Lurkers were big for me. Obviously I never saw the Pistols, the Clash I saw in those days. There were very few that I didn't see, to be honest with you. And carry on now, and still nowadays they have a big punk festival, about 120 bands up in Blackpool every year in August. I normally go to that, and that's fantastic to see so many bands in a short space of time under one roof. Really.
Brilliant. And you mentioned the Lurkers. And if you look long and hard, you'll see a certain Stuart Pearce on an album cover, for goodness sake.
Yeah, it's an inner sleeve of, I think, God's Lonely Men, the Lurkers' second album. A picture taken of the crowd scene at the Marquee Club in London here, and I was fortunate. It's my claim to fame.
Well, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing Nottingham Forest play next year. Frankly, I'm looking forward to listening to the Tannoy music as well, if you've got anything to do with it.
Well, we'll try and influence it if we can.
All right. Best of luck.
Cheers, my pleasure.